Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. For today's video, well, I have a story about a Columbus police officer that allegedly has been shoplifting for an extended period of time. And every day before he went into work, he was stealing a bottle of Mountain Dew and a donut. Actually, 2 bottles of Mountain Dew and a donut, and walking out of a local convenience store. This story, I became aware of this particular news story this morning. When I get out of bed, I check my group text messages, and I had a text message from one of my buddies who was joking around saying, hey, this is going to be my breakfast plan for the year 2024, making a joke about having 2 Mountain Dews and a donut every morning for breakfast. And, then the text message chain kind of went back and forth. The first thing that I said was, after I read the article, it's kind of funny how, you hear things through the rumor mill and then you see it in the media and they're very different. And I don't know which version of the story is the most accurate, which is the first thing that popped in my head. And that's what I replied to the group text message about. And then somebody asked me what I heard and I told them, and the overwhelming response from everybody that I know was like, this is bullshit. Fuck that guy. What a douchebag. And those were my thoughts as well. And I still feel that way because it's incredibly disappointing when you're a police officer and you're doing the right thing, and you're doing the right thing on a daily basis, day in and day out, and you're facing unwarranted criticism from people or whatever, and then you see a story like this from one of your potential friends, and that people are going to kind of weaponize this and use it against you. And, one person's actions actually have consequences for everybody else around them. That was my initial response to this. And then also, just the fact that as a police officer, you would do this kind of thing when everybody knows you're a police officer, is incredibly disappointing. And I'm having a hard time kind of putting into words my overall thoughts on this, because the article here, it says that he was a Columbus police officer for 30 years and retired in bad standing because of this criminal investigation. That's one of the biggest things that kind of pops into my head is this guy was a police officer for 30 years, and his personnel file is actually included in this article. And he had a very good career. It appears that he was a very good officer. And then towards the end of his career, he goes and does something stupid like this. And that's going to be everybody's final memory. How disappointing is that? Like you could have been remembered as a good and honorable person. You had a stellar record. I'm sure he has a ton of good friends on the department that would go to battle for him any day. And this is going to be the lasting memory of you as a police officer. That's the part that is really disappointing to me. And it's also like one of the things that I'm going to kind of point out, one of the themes that I've talked about this over the years, when I talk about police officers that screw up and make mistakes, make poor decisions, kind of go down the wrong road. I've talked a lot about how there's a lot of good people out there that make mistakes. There's been some officer involved shootings over the years that have clearly been a mistake. It doesn't mean that officer was a bad guy. It doesn't mean I had any hate in his heart. What he thought he saw, he didn't see, and he fired his weapon, and that was a mistake. Doesn't make him a bad person or a bad officer. It was an officer that made a mistake. Then there are officers that make a mistake, but that mistake that they make is where, you give in to temptation. And there are varying degrees of giving in to that temptation. And, it's one of the reasons that I believe now Columbus Police has a policy. They didn't used to have a policy that you couldn't be on the vice squad for an extended period of time. And I think that this should kind of be relatively uniform across the country with most undercover type positions, narcotics, vice, gang units, and stuff like that. Because when you are in that world for a really long period of time, it's, you're continuously facing those temptations, and we're all human. I mean, that's one of the biggest weaknesses of being a human being, is that when you're faced with temptation for a long enough period of time, it becomes more and more difficult to fight the urge to give into that temptation. And unfortunately, we see officers in like undercover positions in vice and narcotics. We see them give into that temptation a lot. Well, not a lot, but it happens, right? I've known and heard of officers that have become drug addicts from working in these undercover positions. I've known and heard about officers that were working vice that actually became involved with prostitutes and prostitution. We know about narcotics officers that became actually participants in the drug trade. These are all things that they gave into temptation. And this story, I kind of teeter back and forth on what happened here. If this is a situation where he gave into temptation, or if he was just a bad guy and he was a bad guy all along and that this finally surfaced, I don't really know. But I'm going to read the story for you, and I'm going to give you the version that I heard. And then we're going to actually go through his personnel file. So this is a little bit different video, a little bit different kind of video than what I normally put out. It's a very short story. So it says, Columbus, Ohio, a Columbus police officer with 30 years of service retired in bad standing after being accused of shoplifting. According to public records, the owner of Broadway Market and Cafe on the corner of East Broadway and Silver Drive filed a complaint last March. It said he had video of Officer Jeffrey Tabor coming into his business every day of the week between 7:30 a.m. and 8:30 a.m. and stealing items from his store, routinely grabbing two 20-ounce bottles of Mountain Dew and a donut. The report went on to say that he walked out of the store without any attempt to pay for the items. And then here is the actual report. This is a story that I heard about a few months ago, kind of through the rumor mill. When you're a police officer, rumors fly. Anytime that somebody gets relieved of duty or gets in any kind of trouble, the rumors always fly, and the rumors are generally they sound more serious than what's actually going on. The rumor that I heard several months ago was that there was a guy who was a former criminal intelligence guy or narcotics guy or gang unit guy that was relieved of duty and being accused of robbery. The reason that they said that they were investigating him for robbery is because he used to go to this store every single day. I don't know if it was when he was working undercover or when he was working in uniform, but he went to this store every day and had a relationship with the owner, and the owner would allow him to have 2 bottles of Mountain Dew and a donut every single day. That was his breakfast and his lunch, his snack, whatever it was. A couple of years ago, this store changed hands, new ownership, new management, whatever it was. He would go into the store like he always did. He would grab his 2 Mountain Dews and a donut. And when he went to leave, the guy who runs the store told him, hey, you got to pay for that stuff. And the version of the story that got back to me was he would just kind of smile, shrug the guy off, and walk out the door. And then it got to the point where he was just coming in every single day, getting his 2 Mountain Dews and a donut and walking out of the store without paying, almost as if he felt that he was entitled to have this. And, the guy called in, and there's a copy of the report right here. It says, reporting person is the owner of the business and stated he has video of the suspect coming into his business every day of the week between 7:30 and 8 a.m., stealing items from the store. Specifically, reporting person stated the suspect routinely grabs 2 20-ounce bottles of Mountain Dew and conceals them in his jacket. Additionally, he stated the suspect grabs a donut and walks out of the store without making any attempt to pay for the items. And I believe that this was a call that was fielded by internal investigations. So this is also a case where somebody called in, made a complaint about an officer to internal affairs, and the internal affairs sergeants and personnel, whoever, went ahead and investigated this, and they're looking at criminal charges. The reason that he had to retire in bad standing, I'm assuming, he worked for 30 years. You can work for, generally, people that go through drop, which is the full retirement process, work for 33 years. He was relieved of duty with 30 years of service on, went ahead and retired in bad standing. I believe the reason he retired in bad standing is because if they went ahead and filed those criminal charges and then they add some more charges on having to do with using your position as a police officer to exert force on people. I don't know if there's a robbery or a theft in office or some kind of charge that would have been applicable, but they could have charged him with those. And if he was found guilty, rather than given the opportunity to retire with his pension, he could have been fired and probably lost a great deal of money in that. So rather than wait out the investigation and wait out the criminal proceedings, he chose to go ahead and retire in bad standing. That means he gets his full pension, but he loses his opportunity to ever be a police officer again, can't carry a badge and gun, also loses the opportunity to work for other state agencies as an investigator and stuff like that. It's going to hinder his ability to earn money in retirement. You know, he's going to have to get some kind of menial job to supplement his income to pay for his health insurance. That's basically what that comes down to. Now, the reason that I say it's really unfortunate, and my feelings on this changed a little bit after I read the story and after I looked at his personnel file. I'm still angry about what he did. It's very frustrating because it's like I try not to cuss on these videos, but it's like, you fucking dumbass. You know, how fucking dumb can you be to go in and do this? Like, this kind of fucking attitude, it pisses me the fuck off. And we've heard stories about this. As a police officer, you hear stories about this like throughout your career. You always hear the warning stories of that one guy. Don't be that guy that does that thing. You know, like when I was in the academy, I heard about a guy that had already been retired. But there was a particular Papa John's that gave police officers a discount. And particularly if you were ordering a bunch of pizzas, they would give you a discount because it was like you're going to a party for the police department. So they'd give you a discount because you're ordering a bunch of pizzas for the police department. It's similarly, I went into Panera one day in uniform on my way home from work when I worked third shift. I wanted to get some bagels. And just because I was in uniform, they assumed I was going to get a giant box of bagels. And they started getting ready. I was like, no, I want 4 bagels as I was bringing them home for my wife and kids. But often, you know, when you go into these businesses in uniform, they assume that you're going to order a lot of stuff. So there was this one particular Papa John's pizza place that everybody knew gave a discount to police officers. If you were working and you were hungry, you'd go by there and you'd get a large one-item pizza for like $4 or something like that. Well, this guy had a whole bunch of kids and worked a bunch of overtime and never had enough money. So the story was that got back to me, he used to drive around in his personal car and always have a uniform with him. And what he would do is he would order pizza from that Papa John's and say it's for the police department, throw on a uniform shirt with like a pair of jeans or something, run in, get a stack of pizzas, take them home and feed his family. And it was like his family was living on Papa John's pizza because it was the only thing that he could afford, or he was simply too cheap to buy, real food for his family. That guy was eventually investigated, and I don't know the outcome of that investigation, but that was one of the stories that we were always told, like, listen, don't go be that guy. There's also the idea of just getting free food at convenience stores in general. It's generally speaking, it's a no-no. We have to take an annual ethics course, or at least an ethics refresher, and it kind of tells you what the policies are on gratuities and what gratuities are legal, what gratuities are not legal. I'm not going to get into all of the different ethics laws or anything like that because I'm not an expert on it. I just have to know how to do my part. Generally speaking, the rule is if a business offers the same discount to every single member of that organization, then it's okay to accept that discount. If you are getting a special discount because you have a special relationship with that owner, it's not okay to get that discount. So there are some major chains that it's very well known. I believe Chick-fil-A, I don't go to Chick-fil-A on duty, but I believe they give you half off your meal. So a lot of guys go to Chick-fil-A and get $3 meals. Tim Hortons gives free coffee to cops. There's a lot of gas stations and stuff that give free stuff to police officers. When I go to a business and get something, I refuse to accept anything more than a cup of coffee. That's my take on it. I don't ever take anything for free other than a cup of coffee. If I get a food item, often I'll pay for the food item and ask that they ring up my coffee as well. There is if I go to a privately owned, like something that's not a chain, and they offer me something for free, I decline it. There's a coffee shop on my precinct that they're friendly. You know, the first time that I went in there, they offered me free coffee, and I said no, I'd like to pay for it. And now I go in, they don't offer me free coffee anymore. I go in and I spend like $3 on a cup of coffee. It is what it is, but I'm supporting a local business. I've gone into places where they try to let me get everything for free, and then they'll only accept like $1. Like back in the day, I used to use chewing tobacco, and I would go into this one gas station at night, and I would get like a bottle, so I could spit in the bottle, get a can of chewing tobacco, maybe some gum, and something else. And I would walk up to the counter, and he would look at it and go, $2. It was this, he was like a Middle Eastern type guy. And I told him I'd like to pay for everything. He's like, no, $2. So I gave him the $2 and I left, and I never went back to that place because I think that is kind of too much. You know, you can't expect that kind of thing from people. And what he did was he got to a point where he was expecting something for free every single day because he was a police officer. And you have to realize that you're a guest in these people's place, and that you represent more than just yourself when you're in these places. I mean, it's so frustrating. There's a one gas station that I go to that they give free coffee to police officers, and I always go in and I get my coffee and I say hi. And one day the manager told me, hey, do me a favor, when you come in and get your coffee, can you please walk up to the counter to make sure that the security cameras see you getting your coffee? Because we have to ring it up as a police officer coffee, and you walk out the door. It's part of, I think some of these large chains write it off as like a charity. So I don't complain. I'm not going to give them attitude. I'm getting a free $1.25 cup of coffee. I walk up to the counter, hold up my cup of coffee, and I leave. If he ever says, hey, officer, we changed our policy, we want you to pay for the coffee, I'll just go pay for the coffee. It's not that big a deal. Like, I don't know, this kind of stuff is incredibly frustrating to me. But getting back to this story and the ramifications for his career, and the reason that I say, you know, there's a lot of good people out there and a lot of good officers that either they just make a mistake or they're a really good officer and they give in to temptation. I think that's what happened to this particular guy, although it's not the same kind of temptation. You know, like, I'm not giving him the full benefit of the doubt. I hope that he faces criminal charges out of this, and I hope that he has to answer for these criminal charges. But at the same time, I'm not going to hold a lot of hate in my heart for him because he has had a good career. It's a really strange thing to say. Like, I don't hate the guy forever, but I'm really pissed off that he did what he did, if that makes any sense. So when you get down here in the article, it has the copy of the report. And then here's the stuff where it says, yeah, we recommend that he is allowed to retire in bad standing. That's, if you're under criminal investigation, when you retire in bad standing. If I am 6 months out of retirement and I get involved in an officer involved shooting, and, you know, every officer involved shooting is automatically a criminal investigation. If it's my time to retire before that goes to the grand jury, then I have to retire in bad standing. It is what it is. So here is his resignation letter. And then it goes down through and it's going to show his performance evaluations. Let's see, what year is this? This is up until March 2023. He was working the court liaison. So for this particular job, this is a uniform officer that is in the courthouse, and they help the prosecutors. If somebody has to be arrested at court, they arrest those people. They make sure that officers are getting their subpoenas. They call officers in to make sure that they come in to testify, like that kind of thing. His most recent performance evaluation, he had exceeds expectations on almost everything except for something that's not applicable. So he's there to help the unit, whatever. Then you go down through the ones previous to that. This is when he was working in the gang unit. He was in this unit for 7 years and 4 months. At least he was in that unit and had the same supervisor for that long period of time. This is a pretty standard performance evaluation. Just meets expectations all across the board. That's usually my goal. I'm not trying to exceed expectations in any way, shape, or form. So you're going to go through like years and years and years and years of performance evaluations, standard personnel stuff. And then in a minute here, we're going to get down into his awards and letters of recommendation. Here's one from a citizen. This is from... Oh yeah, it was forwarded from a citizen. I want to express my gratitude and thanks to the assistance of the CIU that provided over the past blah, blah, blah. These people were instrumental in providing additional manpower and experience to some investigation for Gehenna. Let's see. There was a letter to Kim Jacobs from a resident that lives on North Warren Avenue about a drug bust that he investigated and put together a search warrant and got this house shut down. Clinton Township Police Department writing in a letter of accommodation for him. Let's see. I'm trying to go through it kind of quickly. This is like a North Linden Commission praising him for his work to try to fight crime. Letter of accommodation from the sheriff of Franklin County back in the day, helping do undercover work to arrest people around campus. There's another one for the same type of thing. Let's see. Another like special investigations accommodation. Some stuff from Vice saying all of the great work that they did in Vice. Letter from Grandview Heights. You know, this goes on forever. What was the date on this? Okay, they're not dated, but you can tell it's old. That's the moral of the story there. So this goes back to 2004. Yeah, that last one was 2004. I'm not going to read all of these, but you know, it goes on and on and on and on. This guy was a good police officer for 30 years on the department. Well, apparently for 28 years, 20 and a half years, 29 years on the department. And then for some reason towards the end, he went and did something dumb. It's very disappointing. I think that's where I'm going to leave that. You know, it's very disappointing, but it's a lesson to every other police officer out there. Just don't be that guy. Don't be that fucking guy. It tarnishes your career, your record, and it tarnishes the way people are going to look at all of your coworkers and all of your friends. Now, people are going to look at me and they're going to say things to me because you went out and did this stupid thing. I'm not being selfish when I say that kind of thing. It's just incredibly frustrating. But I do think, well, there's two things I want to point out in closing. The first thing is that he apparently is a first-time offender and he was only stealing food because he needed to eat. So according to Columbus City Attorney Zach Klein, he should be eligible for a shoplifting diversion program. So hopefully he does that and gets his criminal charges dropped by the city attorney. If the city attorney is being equitable in the way he hands down these things, I say that in jest. I don't expect him to get a diversion. I really do hope that he pays a consequence criminally for his actions in this case. And then I had another point and I don't remember it, but I don't know. That's the story for today. Thanks for letting me ramble on for a little bit. I'll talk to you guys later.